All right, so sorry for the delay. Again, we're trying to get all the technology worked out for all the presentations. I'm the director of the School of World Studies, Mark Wood, and I just want to welcome everyone to this afternoon's keynote address. You probably know the School of World Studies brings together programs in anthropology, foreign languages, international studies, and religious studies. We've always had a keynote address, but in past years it's been by individuals from around campus, including the president of the university, Michael Rao, last year. This year, given the subject matter of the conference, Constructing Humanity, we thought it would be really wonderful to have students present on the research they've done around the world in different places, on the nature of the history of human beings and various forms of cultural expression. It functions as kind of one way to trace the diverse paths of human beings around the world and their various forms of social expression and the conditions that made their lives possible. We also hope very much, for those of you who have not had a chance to do a study abroad program, that this will be a great introduction to some of the possibilities that you might want to take advantage of in terms of getting out around the world to do the kind of research and have the wonderful kinds of experiences, which I'm sure you'll get a good sense of today, that are involved when you go out to other parts of the world to do this. So without further ado, because I know we also have a reception afterwards, please stay tuned for that. Without further ado, we'll have a presentation on the work that students did with Dr. Amy Varelli in South Africa, and the title of their presentation is Paleoanthropology and the Legacy of Human Evolution, Johannesburg and Capetown, South Africa. Please welcome this group. Thank you.
All right, so I am lucky enough to be an instructor of anthropology here in the School of World Studies. And I, as part of my research, takes me to Africa to, here we go. Is there any way to turn those lights down a little bit?
The lights.
Okay. So my research takes me to Africa to look for fossils, both in Southern Africa and in Eastern Africa, and I've been lucky enough to take students with me to South Africa. And so what I'm going to do is just very briefly tell you about what we do when we're in South Africa, and then students Kristen Green and Jasmine Jewett are going to tell you about their perspectives as well. So we've turned out all the lights except for the ones over there. We'll work on it. Okay. So here are Jasmine and Kristen with us on the trip. And one of the things that we do in South Africa is try to experience not only the natural history and the biological history of the country, but as well as the cultural history as well. So we visit all sorts of different places, we go to different museums, we experience animals, but the whole point of the trip is actually to be involved in paleoanthropological research and experience the fossils themselves. So here are Jasmine and Kristen looking adorable. But here is us at a museum in Johannesburg looking at actual fossil species of our ancestors. And so these are specimens that have been taken out of the ground. Some of them are 2 and 3 million years old. And we get to see them, look at them, analyze them ourselves, and get to pass them around, which we're really not supposed to do, but we do it anyway. And we're also spend time out actually digging at a site at the Cradle of Humankind. So this past year we went to a site called Gondolin, and upcoming years we're going to work on a cave called Stooffontein. And so this is an opportunity for students to actually be on the ground digging, looking for their own ancestors, trying to find those fossils of their own ancestors. We didn't find them this year, but next year it's happening. So we also learned some archaeological techniques as well as techniques for mapping things when we find them, and had a really good time being involved with African scientists as well as American scientists who are out there working. We also get to experience lots of Capetown and Johannesburg and the people and the places, including some cultural centers. This is from the San Cultural Center, so this is a member of the San Cultural Group who is teaching us how to make fire with his hands, and go to Robben Island where Nelson Mandela was in prison for many years, and the Cape of Good Hope. This is a selfie I made Kristen take with me at the Cape of Good Hope. One of everyone's favorites, though, is going to Kruger National Park, where we actually go on safari and see some amazing animals. Sometimes they're sleepy, but we still get to see them. This is a selfie that I made Jasmine take with me. elephants, monkeys. And by doing this, we get to think about the evolutionary context of our ancestors. What did it look like when our ancestors walked outside the door? What would it mean to have a hippo out there in the middle of your road? Also, it was just sort of awesome. You can really see how awesome that is. But one of the most favorite things we did this past year was we worked at an orphanage in Capetown. And so we spent some time painting a wall to help them make their playground look a little bit nicer, and they got involved with us. The children who lived at that orphanage got involved with us. So we had a really amazing time both spending the day with them and then thinking about how we could be more involved in their lives and lives of children like them as we continue to go back to South Africa year after year. So I will let you now hear from Kristen Green and Jasmine Jewett and give you their perspective on studying and traveling in South Africa as well.
Hi, my name is Kristen Green, and I'm a forensic science major, and I actually got the privilege of going to South Africa to do an anthropology and biology study abroad. I chose this program because I wanted to learn about different cultures and also to learn about different subjects besides the ones that are specifically for my major. And also, anthropology is kind of related to my major, so it was interesting to just see a different topic than what I'm actually majoring in. One of the coolest things about going to South Africa was going to the orphanage and actually seeing the kids there. And it was very humbling just to be able to work with them and to just paint a mural for them, and just seeing how people in the community were willing to work with us instead of just having us go in and just make this mural for them. They were willing to be part of our community and help us to paint the mural for them. And that's something I really don't see here in America. I feel like a lot of us just try to let other people do stuff if they're volunteering. We don't actually go out and help them. And so it was interesting and just really awesome to see how they do that and how they were willing to just work with us and what we were doing for them. Another humbling experience was just being able to share food with them. A lot of the townships that we live, that are there and that people live in don't have a lot of food and are very broken and don't have a lot of resources. And so just being able to just share food with other people while we were there was really awesome. One of my favorite parts was actually learning stuff in the classroom, but also going outside and actually experiencing that. We did go to Gondolin to dig, and that was really awesome just to be able to experience that rather than just learning about it in a classroom and just looking at pictures. Also, seeing the fossils in person was a great opportunity just to see what is happening and not just looking at pictures, but to also be able to see it in person and to understand what you're talking about and what you're learning in class. I would definitely suggest that if you want to do a study abroad trip and you're interested in anthropology, you should definitely do this trip because you are learning what you do learn in class, but you're going outside and actually experiencing it in real life. And you just get a lot of cultural experience and just being able to see what another country is like and their culture and just being able to experience that.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Jewett, and I'm an anthropology major, as my shirt says. And I went on this trip mainly because of the anthropology and because I'm really interested in biological anthropology and human origins. And I really wanted to see the environment that humans basically evolved in. And I wanted to see fossils, the actual fossils instead of like museum casts of fossils, and to be able to actually hold them and research and do measurements and things like that with my hands is a really cool way of experiencing it. I also went there because I wanted to learn about the culture and community that was in South Africa. I grew up in a really, really poor neighborhood of America, which is South Central LA. And in South Central LA, there's not very many community projects, but the few ones that are there really change like children's lives and things. And we saw a lot of that in South Africa in the townships. There was one in particular called Capetown, and they are a community program that got a $50,000 grant from CNN, and they used that to build a computer center in their township. And people are able to use that computer center to learn and write resumes and things that they never could do before, which lets them get better jobs and improve their lives, which was never a resource they had before. And I thought that was a really important thing that not many people realize or think about, is if you just give people the tools, they'll use it to better their lives. And that was just a great opportunity to see how that worked. I also thought the history part of it was really cool. I learned a lot about apartheid and things that I never really was exposed to before this trip. And I learned how the actions in the United States can affect South Africa. Like apparently we passed laws and we did a sanctions thing on South Africa goods, and that really affected the government being able to be changed. And to actually be there, and people would thank us just because we were Americans. And I mean, we weren't even alive then, but they still have that residual love for us for helping in any way that we could in a situation that was so terrible. And that was really amazing to see. So the number one thing that I would say is everybody should go to South Africa with Dr. Borelli, mainly because you just learn things about yourself and the country that we're in and how lucky we are and how many opportunities we have and how we can really share that with everyone in the world, not just with the people of the United States. So it was just a great opportunity to feel a globalized community in the world and not just be isolated here. Cool.
So I'll just say now, if anyone needs any information about South Africa, you can send me an email or come talk to me after a bit, and I will give you information for next year. And I think someone is up after me.
So as you can see from the program, our next presenter are students that went with John Wainwright to Israel to participate in an archaeological dig at Lachisch, and John will be leading that group again this year. So I know that many of the people have gone in the past, many of the students have gone in the past. They're going back for the second or third or fourth time. And I think it'll be pretty clear from this presentation why that has been the case. So let's go ahead and welcome the group that will be presenting today on that.
Hold that thought. Great. Well, again, I'm John Wainwright, and I'm the director of the Tel Lachisch Field School to Israel. And I've been for many years, and I'm always excited to talk about it because we have so many wonderful discoveries to share with you. I have a few folks I'll introduce you to in just a few minutes, but I thought I would give some kind of overview of our work, of actually your work. I like to call it your work. You're the ones that are going over there and digging. Scholars get to write the papers, get to give presentations, but it's really you that is doing the work there. So just a brief introduction, then I'll introduce a few students. So I always like to say, gosh, for some 20 years now, VCU students have been making incredible discoveries in Israel, Palestine. We've had teams, you can see up here, that go to Ashkelon for many years, right on the site. Ashkelon's interesting because it's sort of a bad joke to say, but a stone's throw from Gaza, about 11 kilometers down the street, if you will. And noticed we spent a good number of years there, and then we went on to Kiryat Kiafa that you can maybe see in the near center of the photo, center left. Then we went to Zaytah for a few years, and now we're at another site called Tel Lachisch. So what we like to do is partner with other consortium schools. So Hebrew University, Oakland University, VCU is one of those 3 or 4 member schools, and we all come together under the directorship of Hebrew University, and we sort of followed Yossi Garfinkel. He's in the center of this picture here for the last couple of years through work at 2 main sites. One of them is being Kerbert Kiafa. So we spent 5 years at a mound that people overlooked. That is, it's a small little site. There's only 2 periods witnessed at Kerbert Kiafa. This is some of our team here. I mean, literally, you scratch the surface, you're already in the Great Period, 4th century before the Common Era. You dig another meter down and you go right to the 11th, 10th century before the Common Era. So that's wonderful, because when you're working accumulations over in the Near East, you can have to go through 10s and 20 of feet to get down to the early material. Not for us, it's just a meter away. And so at Kerbert Kiafa, again, a site that was overlooked, we made some amazing discoveries that have lots of implications for not only history, but anthropological research and biblical research. It is the Holy Land. So I'd like to say it's never a dull moment over that way. But some of the discoveries we've made at this it's just 7 acres of the site. Just a little 7-acre site perched on a mountaintop, are an incredible amount of assemblages. So that you can see in the picture, maybe, I'm not sure if you can see that well or not, but we have 3 shrine rooms dating to the 11th century before the Common Era. We have 2 gates, 2 gateways. And if you know anything about fortifications, right, you only want 1, really. So we're still trying to figure that out. Why do you have 2 gates? They're your weakest part of your walls. So that's an interesting, unique assemblage for us. Not to mention all these houses just built up around the perimeter wall. So we literally excavate just a meter down, and we're in somebody's house from the 11th, 10th century before the Common Era. And back in those days, you didn't just take the soldiers, just didn't go out there, but the whole families. So we find material culture that's related to life, cooking, warfare, battle, seal impressions coming in from Egypt. We have an altar. It's always strange for me to lecture on Kerbert Kiafa, because I want to say, but wait, there's more, because there's just so much more. Notice these are all VCU students. So what we in fact did in our work at Kerbert Kiafa for 5 years was build what they call in general systems theory assemblages. So that writing's an assemblage, so that pottery styles are an assemblage, so the way you fortify your sites are an assemblage. All of these are put together, right? And we're now going to call that Judean. So we have Judean assemblages that we found at Kerbert Kiafa, wonderful inscriptions, and we put all that together and see if we can find it somewhere else. Because we know that Jerusalem is going to be the most important site in the biblical period, and we have Kerbert Kiafa just 25 miles away. Well, if there's one Kerbert Kiafa, there's got to be another one. So we take all these assemblages that you found, and we try to see if we can find them in other places. So we went just about 30 kilometers down the road with a couple large groups. You can see here is 21 2 years ago, and we see, in fact, if we can hunt those. Well, here's some actual footage shots. See if we can hunt those assemblages down at another site. And that site that we've just started to excavate at for the last 2 years is called Tel Lachisch. Tel Lachisch. So Tel just means mound in Hebrew and Arabic. So the mound of Lachisch. And this is our team last year. And if you've got good eyes, you can see that screen. We're actually standing in a late Bronze Age temple. Here's the doorway right here. But you can see this walls right here. And I don't have enough time to go into the incredible amount of finds. That's for another time and another place, because I really want the students to share their experiences. So we went there 2 years ago. Here's the size. This is 22 acres of mound. So Kiafa was 7, now we go to 22. And this site has imagine a site that has over 3,000 years of continual history. I mean, that's nothing for Amy's work back then. And by the way, we should give a shout out to Ben Anderson. Is he in here? Because Ben was a member of both Amy and mine group. So imagine going from South Africa to Israel. Quite a change in archaeology. But in any case, what we're out for is this elusive period from the 11th, 10th century before the Common Era. And biblical speaking, that's the period of King David and the earliest kings of ancient Israel. And many folks before us, biblical archaeologists, historians, were trying to note that we don't have anything from that period. Well, we just dug up 5 years of it from Kerber Kiafa, and just this past season, when we thought we were sort of giving up hope, it's a hard picture. Well, this is actually a huge mud brick wall they're digging in right now. But just down here, you can see this wall. And just 2 weeks before the end of the excavation, we were able to date this wall to the 11th, 10th century before the Common Era. That's the period, again, of David and the early kings of ancient Israel. So we're not just out to prove biblical history. We have anthropological questions, we have historical questions, but we're in ancient Israel. So I hope that some of you in here, if you haven't thought about digging or working over on a study abroad program, will think about joining us or one of the other ones. And I have a workshop coming up on the 18th that I can alert you to later if you ask me about it, but now I want to turn to the students. So up here, and I should say, this is not just, if for a second, all folks that have excavated with me in Israel, if you could stand for 1 second, so we can just see how many folks we have here. Great. Wonderful, thank you. So now I'll turn it over to a couple of students that were willing to say a few words. Adam Stewart is one of them. Adam excavated with me for 3 years and was finally hired by the excavation. That's what this study abroad did for him. Victoria Gupton drew a lot of interest from Bar Magazine. Vincent Casson got a scholarship from Bar Magazine to work in ancient Israel. And then Keenan Field on the end, who was a great help in the field. So I'll turn it over to Adam. He'll speak for the most part. If there's any time left, we'll turn it over to the rest. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. I'm Adam Stewart. I'm majoring in anthropology, and my minor is religious studies. This is my last semester here at VCU, and it's been one crazy ride. 4 years ago, if you asked me where I would be today, I would never say in front of you all because I've done archaeology. It's just something I never would have thought of. These past few years, let's say 4 years ago, I don't want to take too much time, but it's just a short story. About 4 years ago, just like everybody else, I never knew what I wanted to really major in. I just knew I had to get a job and that I needed to go to school. But one day I saw my advisor, Dr. Thornton, who alerted me of just some classes I could take, just some easy things, or not easy, interesting courses that I can take. And I said, of course, as long as I could wake up in time. I was a little bit younger. I did like to sleep a little later. And she told me of this course in religious studies. It started at 7 p.m. I said yes. And it turned out to be Western religions, Religious 311. And it was taught by Dr. Wainwright. And the first time I went there, it was a lot of information. And it was almost too much. It was pretty intimidating, but I really liked to learn about it. And one day he eventually brought up this program where we went abroad and we did help people, and we were actually getting our hands in history. We were actually putting our hands in somebody's dinner from like 4 years ago. We were actually pulling up somebody's lunch bowl. We're pulling up statues. We're pulling up anything from somebody's home that was there. And it was really cool. So I don't know what it was that day, because he somehow got me into the idea that I should just go to the Middle East. One day, I think I was bored, so I went to his session at night and just continued going. And I started at Kerber Kiafa, as he previously mentioned. Kerber Kiafa, I was just a volunteer, and I spent 2 seasons there. And I learned a lot from not only just history or the biblical age of kings, but I also learned a lot from people from around the world who were there. There was people from Europe, there was people from Korea, there was people from Africa, there's people from just South America, everyone I could meet. There's so many different languages. There was so much, almost too much. As if anthropology told you culture shock is real, and you will bring it back and you'll almost miss it. So I kept going back. I wanted more. I just couldn't get enough of it. And it wasn't just courses and books when we went abroad. We were getting taught methods. We were getting taught form and function. We were getting taught history And we were pulling it out and we were trying to analyze history. So we spent most of the day in labs, we spent most of the day out there finding out what everyone else didn't know. So we would start recording that, and this previous season, I was asked to be a staff member there because I didn't know everything, but I did know enough to get by. I knew how to record, I knew what pottery looks like from certain ages, I knew what stratigraphy was, I knew how to record it. So I couldn't really make a real mistake as long as somebody was next to my side. I think my main weapons was the multicolored ink pen and the journal, 24/7. It was always on me. I was always drawing, I was always writing. If you see my pictures, my head's always down, right in the corner. It's 18 hours a day, I'm always writing or picking at something. I think I'm picking at a piece of pottery to finally show to somebody. It was a great experience, so that's how I basically started. And being a supervisor was almost too much, but it was great because I was working with locals. I wasn't just with VCU or with VCU really at all. I was with people from Palestine. I was with children from the local villages, and we were trying to communicate with each other. They knew English, I knew maybe 3 words in Hebrew. So I could tell them there's a rock, or I could tell them there's a plant, I think it was, or that it's watermelon tree. That's about it. But they were able to communicate with me, and it was very nice because we could just talk. We didn't have to talk about politics, we didn't have to talk about history. We were getting together, and we were all there for the same reason, so we learned to work collaboratively. And things I got out of it, when they speak, everyone gets something different out of this program. Not only us, but the people abroad, the people that live there, the people that come from a different country to meet with you. Everyone's getting something else out of it. Is it friends? You meet people. I got friends for life now. People I'll see all the time. Friends, new recipes, new languages. You'll get a great history lesson. You'll learn how to do really anything you possibly want. They'll tell you about that even more. And what I'm going to do with it, I want to just keep doing it because I took this opportunity a couple years ago, and I just said yes, and I just kept saying yes, and now I'm here today. And I could probably I'd most likely go to grad school in this country because of this, and I could continue helping people and working with people and working for the same cause, whatever that cause is at this point. So that's my little story here and how I got here. And I would also like to ask some other students to tell you their experience because other students did have other things they did. They did something different. They got to travel. We go to different sites. We never had a day off. We never really had an hour off. But I'd go to bed at 2, wake up at 4, and do it again. It was Monday through Sunday. It was ridiculous. But it was good. I mean, we did not want to be there. We worked together. We did not want to do it. So when they talk about it, they'll tell you what they really got and why they're going to go back. Because there's a couple of people in this room that's been there previously, and they just want to keep going back for whatever reason they would like to. So I would also like somebody to come up and speak.
My name is Victoria Gupton. I'm an International Studies and Religious Studies double major. In much the same way that Adam started, I took freshman year, first semester, John Wainwright's Religion 312 class for Western religion. I chose both these majors because I like religion and I like human rights, so this kind of seemed the perfect study abroad for me. I will say I had 0 archaeology experience before coming, so I showed up day 1, thought I was going to have little brushes maybe, something like that, maybe some dinosaur bones. That was not at all accurate. We woke up at 4 a.m. and dug until 1 with lots of equipment, very fast paced. And at first, I will admit, for the first week, I was like, what did I do? Why did I do this? We're here for 3 weeks. And then, I don't know what happened. I went to another square, and I saw, I started kind of moving around. I was in Adams Square for a while. That was really fun. And I really did start to love it, and I loved But I really did love traveling on the weekends because it is, I will say though, because that's my area of interest for this was human rights. And the conflict really is palpable wherever you go. Like, you'll see, you know, a Hasidic Jew bump into, or, you know, maybe a Muslim on the street, and you think, like, the geopolitical implications of this are astounding, and it's scary for a little bit. But I think my absolute favorite part of the whole trip, though, was in the last couple days, where, like Adam said, we had some like local kids come and dig with us, and this little girl named Karen, who knew absolutely no English. I think she could say maybe hello, because in Israel they are also big fans of Americans. They almost always know English. So you go up to a store, you just hi, hello, and there's English now. But Karen didn't know that, so I had to learn enough Hebrew to talk to her. So I learned things like things you'd say to kids. I learned how to say, like, great job, kol hakavod, and like, you're doing great. I learned how to tell her that something was a stone or pottery. And that meant a lot to me, because the kids there, I guess my three areas of interest are religion, human rights, and kids. And I really brought them all together. And I never really expected that to happen. I thought that I was kind of gonna go and maybe get a glimpse of some human rights issues and maybe, you know, get my toes in the water. But that makes me want to go back and do that for a living and go and work with kids in areas of religious conflict. And that's definitely my favorite part of that. So you guys should definitely go to Israel. It'll be great.
Time's sake, I think we'll move on and let the next group come up. But do afterwards or during the reception hunt Keenan down or Vincent or any of the other folks that have excavated before and talk to them again about their own personal experiences. Thank you very much.
So our last presenters are a group of students that were led by Barbara Ingber, who's right here, who works for VCU Globe, and the students went to Oaxaca, Mexico, and Mexico City this past summer, and will be going again this year. So please, a warm round of applause for this next presenting group.
Okay, while Katie's getting things settled, I have promised to stick to my script, because otherwise I would be doing way too much talking. So if I look like I'm reading, it's because of them. They said, don't keep talking. And I really do want them to do the talking, because they did all the heavy carrying. So I can start without the pictures by telling you that my name is Barbara Ingber, and I am a failed archaeologist, I have to confess. But I am the Assistant Director of Community Outreach for VCU Globe, which is a living and learning community, and a program. 2 summers ago, I piloted a program with 8 students, and we went to Oaxaca, Mexico. I'm sorry, it's no picture.
I don't know how to make this work.
Kidding me. The picture shows a group of students.
It's here, but not there.
Yeah. If you want to come up, you can see it. So I had the pleasure of taking 8 students to Oaxaca, Mexico for a surface learning program. And they spent 3.5 weeks. They studied VCU Globe coursework, and that involved globalization, multicultural or intercultural communication, culture shock. We studied migration during that course, and I hope you guys know how to do hand shadow puppets, because that's what you're going to see. The students also studied, they lived with Mexican families. They studied Spanish each weekday in the morning. They visited archaeologists. Are you going to be okay talking without the slides if you can't help us? We're going to get help.
We will be fine, but it will be
fine.
better with the slide.
Yes, yes, much more picturesque. Okay, so they studied Spanish, they lived with Mexican families, they taught English to children in a Zapotec village and also to adults, depending on the group that they were placed with, and this was at the villagers' request. We visited archaeological sites, we went to sites of artistic and cultural interest, we went to villages that are known for their pottery, their tapestries, their all different crafts, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience for them. So among the participants were the two young women up here, Sydney Gordon and Katie Hines. There they go. And you can, oh yeah. This was where they taught, and in an administrative building in a Zapotec village. Katie's up there at the top, and Sydney's right in the center. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, good, they can hear me. Okay. I may be short, but I'm loud. So, they both returned last summer. They wanted more. So last summer we went for 5 weeks, and we included time in Mexico City, which is one of the world's great cities. But they not only repeated the program, they did research, and they're going to tell you about it now. So first I want to introduce Katie, who is majoring in political science and Spanish. She's a junior. She is minoring, in religious studies. She plans to work for a nonprofit in another country, possibly the one with which we partnered in Oaxaca. Or she might join the Peace Corps. She's contemplating working for the CIA. Majoring in psychology, broadcast journalism, and African American studies. Sydney is a senior this year. She'll apply for a Fulbright research grant, which she will no doubt get, and then she'll travel and pursue a PhD in clinical psychology. Her long-term goal is to work with children and adolescents with mood and anxiety disorders, and now she'll tell you about her research.
Thank you, Ms. Ingber, and let me know if you guys can hear me. So before I get started, this is a picture of Katie and I on our second day back in Oaxaca when we both traveled to the village on our own for the first time. So this is Capetown, the sign outside the road that takes you into the village that we worked in for 2 summers now. And so here's a little snapshot of what I'm going to share with you guys about my research. This summer, I was awarded the Community Engaged Summer Research Fellowship from the Undergraduate Research Opportunities Program. My project, Left Behind, exploring the impact of migration on the village community of Capetown del Valle, involved conducting qualitative interviews with people in Capetown. I was interested in the impact of migration there, and I spent 4 weeks interviewing these people in the Zapotec village, which is located about 30 kilometers outside of the city of Oaxaca. And so right now I'm transcribing, and if anyone has done qualitative work, you know that that's quite a pain. So I'm going to share some preliminary results, and I'm going to rely on my cards because I want to share some of the stories that I heard. So there wasn't a person I encountered who did not know someone who had migrated or had not migrated themselves. The inspiration behind this project came from the stories of migration I heard my first time in Capetown and my interest in the psychological impacts of migration. I remember hearing from one woman who paid a coyote to escort her across the border from Mexico to Tijuana and then trekked through the mountains and desert into Southern California by foot. Leaving her family for economic necessity and to escape a drunken husband, she stayed in the LA area for 5 years working in the fast food industry. She talked about the discrimination she faced, the hardships of leaving her family, and the difficulty of maneuvering in a culture and a language that she didn't understand. In the current US political arena, immigration is a controversial topic. The conversations I had with the people this summer continue to shed light on how difficult and complex the experience of migration is. Immigration impacts individuals, families, and local communities, those who leave and those who stay behind. There was lots of trauma experience and lots of sadness and lots of risk shared in the stories that I heard. For example, one woman I interviewed said that every one of her 6 brothers emigrated to the United States in search of a better life that includes financial stability and a promising future for their children. Some of these brothers have secured citizenship or legal residency while others remain undocumented and therefore unable to ever see their family again. One of these brothers left for the States several years ago and no one has heard from him. The woman doesn't know if he is dead or alive. The close family ties have been broken and none of those left behind are able to secure visas to visit their relatives in the U.S. And I don't know if any of you know, but for Mexicans to secure visas to the United States is really difficult and expensive. Another of my interviewees left his home at 17 because his family was struggling to support themselves. He enrolled himself in high school, worked in the fast food industry, and sent money home. He was able to learn English while in California, but many migrants from Teotihuacan don't. Now back in Teotihuacan del Valle, he markets his family's rugs through commercial connections he made in the U.S. And finally, I'll share the story of a woman who who went to the U.S. with her husband and brother-in-law who served as their coyote. She went to the U.S. when she was just 17 years old, and soon after she gave birth to her first daughter. For familiar reasons, the woman had to return to Teotihuacan and having to leave behind her husband and daughter. After things were settled, because she was without documents and immigration laws had changed, she was unable to return to the U.S. Some years later, her husband was able to obtain his citizenship, and so he came back to visit her, and she subsequently got pregnant with her second daughter. When I met her this past summer, she was awaiting the arrival of this younger daughter, an 8-year-old, whom she had not seen since she was a baby. She hasn't seen her oldest daughter since she was 11 years old, and she's now my age, which is early 20s, and she shared her hopelessness of ever being reunited with her husband and daughters in the United States. I hope that the results of my ongoing research will help people to see that the reasons for migration are not simple, that the effects are far-reaching and often traumatic for families and the wider communities. It's not as easy as getting documentation because it's incredibly hard for Mexicans to get visas to the United States. It affects the sending and receiving country. I also hope that my work will lead to more respectful, empathetic dialogue and approaches to immigration policy making. And now, my friend Kate is going to talk about her.
Thank you. So I also received an undergraduate research opportunities program fellowship to study abroad in Oaxaca, Mexico. I wanted to research the local nonprofit that we worked with in Oaxaca because I want to work for that or a similar organization one day. My research is focused on the model that Fundación Envía uses in order to give the women in the communities in which it works opportunities to start and to expand businesses. Fundación Envía currently provides no-interest microfinance loans to groups of 3 women in 6 indigenous villages outside of the city of Oaxaca. They fund these loans by taking tourists and prospective volunteers to meet some of the women who have participated in their programs. The first year when our group went on this tour, we met a woman who had used their loans to purchase chickens to sell, who made cheese, who bought garlic from local farmers, and sold it in Oaxaca markets, and others who wove rugs. This past summer, we visited a woman who made flour tortillas, another who needed a loan to make the natural dyes for her rugs, and another who started a restaurant, which we got to eat lunch in, and it was delicious. And 100% of the tour fees provide the loans, which are paid back weekly and within a couple of months. That money then funds another loan. The process occurs once more, and the third payback provides for administrative costs and the education programs. Envía also offers English classes for all community members of several villages and workshops on topics ranging from menopause to computer literacy, and it's all at the women's request. I had the opportunity to visit several villages with the founder of Fundación Envía and to observe the women in the process of paying back their loans. The personal relationships that he and the other staff have built with the loan recipients and the required monthly trainings in budgeting, marketing, sales, and other business-related areas result in a payback rate of nearly 99%. And Fundación Envia's success is based on a combination of responsible tourism, trust building, personal relationships, and peer group interdependence and accountability, which empower women to improve their families and their communities' well-being. My research will show that Fundación Envia can serve as a model for other nonprofits that might tailor their approach to the communities in which they work.
And so now Katie and I are gonna expand on our experience outside of our research and show you some more photos from our experience over the 2 summers we spent together. So here's a group shot of us on our final dinner this past summer in Oaxaca City before we headed back to Mexico City. And we wanted to share that our experiences in Oaxaca have changed our lives, and the way we look at the world is never going to be the same as it was when we first left for the country for the first time together on May 14, 2016. And this next picture Katie's going to talk about.
2018.
Oh, May 16,
She's
2014.
going again. She's
Back to the
going
picture.
again.
So this is a picture with our host family from the second year. The first year, Sydney and I lived with different families, but then the second year, I had met Sydney's family, which is the same one, and I really wanted to live with them, so we got to live together in this second trip. And in the center is Mama Pati. She let us call her Mama Pati. And then our host sister, who is also called Pati. And then the rest of us that were a part of the trip.
And this is actually on my birthday, and later on our host mom would send out a cake, and we had a little mini party, so this was a really special day.
Yeah.
So we've seen how the people of Teotihuacan del Valle, the village in which we worked to balance maintaining tradition while creating economic opportunities and stability. Teotihuacan isn't free from the influences of globalization, but people there are making conscious efforts to preserve their culture, for example, with continued production of tapetes, the wool rugs they are known for. They market their rugs to the tourists who visit the village and a wider world market. This is also true in other village communities in Oaxaca. And here is what are called chapulines, which are deep-fried grasshoppers.
They're really good. I
Yeah.
promise. I ate one.
You can't eat just one.
I
It's like
ate
peanuts.
just one.
It's like peanuts.
Yeah.
And so these are the tapetes, which are the rugs that they're made for, and all the colors you see
Why?
that are obviously so vibrant are made from natural dyes.
Yeah.
And some of the dyes come from bugs called the cochineal.
Doing fine.
Okay.
Well,
And each of the tapetes have a different design, and it can be based on the woman's traditions, like their history, and it's also a kind of competitive. Like the women are constantly trying to come up with new designs to compete with each other to see who can sell the most or sell the best.
What was the next slide? Was the woman in the process of what?
Of dyeing.
well, you can see her actually making the rug using
Natural.
the natural dyes, and how the different colors of the wool are intertwined on this thing. The loom, yes.
Yeah, and they actually have a chance to try to use the loom to work with the wool, to
Spinning
carve
the
the
wool,
wool.
we've watched the process of dyeing, and how they clean the wool.
Yeah. How they create the dyes as well. Like the whole process. We got to see every single step of the process.
And this picture is special because the woman who you would
Yeah.
be able to see is the woman who made the rug that I bought for my grandma, and it's now hanging in her house.
And we met her the first year, and we went back to visit her when we went the second year.
What are the dyes made out of?
So I shared one color. It's like a deep blue is made from a bug called cochineal, and it's like once the bugs are dead and dried, they grind it up and they mix it with water, and there's all sorts of little tricks they have, like
Yeah.
putting a drop of lemon juice or a drop
The
of
first year,
milk,
yeah.
and they change the colors completely,
The first year we saw a woman like taking pomegranates and
fermenting them and then dipping the wool in
Yeah.
there. The next picture you would see is a stove we built. We partnered Yeah, it's okay. We're just gonna.
We're just gonna wait.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Imagine a sooty kitchen. It's black, walls are black.
from cooking on an open fire, so that's smog and what would be in people's lungs.
So we had the opportunity to work with civil engineers performing their national service by building these stoves in a village that wasn't as touched by globalization as some of the other villages that we visited. And the women in San Miguel, which is the village, they still wear their traditional clothing, and we didn't really see any cell phones or like any kind of internet cafes or signs of modern technology there. So it was very, oh yeah, let's go back to the other one.
Okay.
Let's go back.
Yeah, there's the woman who's.
Yeah, so now you can see,
Okay. Oh. Yeah, she's that.
yeah.
Okay.
If you had painted it with natural dyes, it wouldn't rely on technology.
Okay, and so this is the stove we built. We're in two groups. So these civil engineers had a goal of making like 30 stoves over 30 days. So on one day, we got to go out to this village with them, and normally they're able to do one stove with 3 of them, and this day they were able to do 2 stoves with like 12 of us. So
Yeah. We slowed down the process slightly, but we got it done.
But those 2 circular things you see on top of the bricks are called comas, and that's where they make the tortillas. And all the black you see against the wall, I'm not sure if you can see it, is the smog. And
The soot.
soot. And so with
The
these
Spanish
stoves,
word is smog.
so with the stoves we built, there's chimneys, and so that smoke is now going out and not into the lungs of the people. And this is a woman lighting to test out the stove we made.
What?
And this is the traditional closed caves, talking about where all the women, every woman you would see was wearing some version of this, whereas in Capetown, you'll see women wearing jeans or t-shirts or with like American characters on it. This is not the case in San Miguel. And this is a collage of some of our students and our teaching experience.
So this picture on the far right is of me teaching my students. They were about 12 years old, around that age. And I would play them a song, and they would have to try to catch vocabulary. And I had different age groups each year, so it was an interesting experience with the different age groups. And I didn't really have a set skill level with the languages, with like their English knowledge. So like I had a variation of very beginners to more advanced, so I kind of had to figure out how to make that work.
And with this teaching, we had to create our own lesson plans and make the supplies so that we were going to use. And so here in the bottom middle picture is my girls doing a matching game. So I printed out pictures of actions, and on these flashcards I had the English version, and they had to match the pictures with the words, and then we would do it again, and they'd have to match the Spanish also. And then the bottom left corner is on our last day together, so of course selfies are warranted.
Yeah.
But what's really special is the little girl in the red velvet dress here in this little picture. I got to have her 2 years in a row, and she remembered me, and her English had advanced because she had been continuing to go to English classes over the course of the year, but she would not go with any of the other teachers, and so she was like my little teacher's pet, but they just let her come with me because she was making a big scene of it.
So this is a picture with our host family again at the end. This is all of our family, so it's Mama Pati, Omero, and then Pati again. We also had a host brother, but he didn't want to take the picture with us, so he's not in there. Yeah. So that was our last day, and honestly, living with a host family was the best experience because we not only got to eat the foods that they cook on a daily basis, like we got to be a part of their family. Like our host mom let us call her Mama Pati. Like we became so close with them, and they told us we could come back whenever we wanted to and visit them again. It's just kind of a life-changing experience, and I want to go back.
Yeah, what we realize is that nothing can take the place of actually going and being in a place and being a part of a community. You can read all you want or look up pictures online, but going and doing and being somewhere is going to change that. And while our research took us in different directions, one of the biggest things we've realized is our privilege and that different ways of being and living in the world are just that different, and it's not fair to rank lifestyles. And it's important to just take it all in and appreciate what you have, but also appreciate the way others live. So thank you for listening.
Thank you.
And
Sorry.